George is going to lead us in the.
No, I do want to sit down.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the emergency meeting for Thursday. Today is April 24th. It's 9:05. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one certificate of appointment this morning to announce. I've reviewed it, it's in proper form, and I'm pleased to report that the mayor of Crown Point, Peter Land, has appointed the mayor of Crown Point. Was it opposed, or did you?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Look forward to working with you.
Me too.
That's it. Thank you, sir. Duly constituted.
Yeah, we'd also like to welcome Mr. Tim Clayton. He was here, he was nominated last month, but he's here today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Roll call, please, Candace.
Yes. Kyle Allen.
Present.
Thank you. Dwayne Arndt.
Present.
Jeanette Bass. Thomas Black. Kevin Brightsky.
Here.
Robert Carnahan.
Here.
Bill Carroll.
Here.
Tim Clayton.
Present.
Anthony Copeland. Don Kraft.
Here.
Josh Lane Denman. Tom Dermody.
Present.
Dinah Dumbrus. Denise Ebert.
Here.
Bill Emerson.
Here.
Robert Forster.
Here.
Connie Grammarosa. Richard Hardaway.
Here.
Tony Hendricks. Ellen Hunt.
Here.
Jack Geralds.
Here.
Jane Jordan.
Here.
Justin Keel.
Present.
Scott Keenan. Peter Land.
Here.
Robert LeMay. Sue Lynch.
Present.
Tom McDermott. Lori Mercer.
Here.
Wendy Miss.
Present.
Edward Morales.
Here.
Matt Murphy. Randall Niemeyer. Dwayne Perry. David Peeler. Jim Pressel. Jerome Prince. Barb Regnitz.
Here.
Lisa Rosenkrantz.
Here.
Regina Riddell.
Here.
Rick Reifa.
Here.
Tom Schmidt.
Here.
Brian Snidecorp.
Present.
Steve Spivard. Red Stone.
Present.
Gerald Swets.
Present.
Sharon Zwido. Mary Tanis.
Here.
Jim Tunn.
Present.
George Topple.
Present.
John Yelkich. One moment. We have 34 in attendance. Let me reach up to you.
Thank you very much.
Proud of ourselves.
Yes.
At this, we have no public comment this morning. So we'll move right along. I have no report from the chair this morning, so we'll go straight to, what did I miss? Sorry about that. Thank you. Approval of the minutes from March 16, 2023 from the executive board. Pages
So moved to approve the minutes.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr.
Carnahan.
Carnahan and seconded by, we have a couple seconds, Mary Candace and Kyle Allen. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Side note.
Yeah, that's it.
34, we have 4.
Thank you. Moving right along to, now, the chair has no report, and we'll go to the executive director, Tyler.
Only just a quick overview of what we're doing today, because I think both of the things that we'll be voting on today really exemplify the regional push that NERC has. And I will steal thunder of staff that are going to present these items, but one deals with the Marquette Greenway, which is a project I think you're all familiar with, the trail that goes from Chicago to New Buffalo, Michigan, which exemplifies how this region has come together to create something of benefit for all 3 counties. And the other item of the agenda is staff is going to be giving an overview of our federally mandated but regionally developed long-range plan, the next iteration of which is 2050 plus, which also involved a ton of input opportunities throughout the region at the county fairs and whatnot to get to this point. So excited about both of these items on the agenda. But before I do that, I just wanted, because they're both in the room, introduce 2 new staff people, and I'm totally putting them in the spot. I'm not asking you to speak, don't worry, just to be acknowledged. But Stephen Hughes is our new transit and engagement planner that started with us a couple weeks ago. And Grace, thank you. And Grace Benninger is our new spatial analyst who also started at the same time. We'll be seeing more of them as time goes on here, so glad to have them on board.
Thank you, sir. Finance and Personnel Committee, Cindy Miss.
Good morning, everyone. The Finance and Personnel Committee met this morning promptly at 8 o'clock to review the financial reports for February and March 2023. We also reviewed the bank reconciliations for February and March and the claims registers for March of 2023. All were found to be satisfactory, and we thank Ms. Jones for all of her efforts and her team for the efforts on that. We have one item and one action item for consideration today, a request for the approval to enter into a contract with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert Incorporated for the Marquette Greenway project with a revision, with a contingent revision from the Federal Highway. There's also one modification which you have all should have received a handout regarding. It's Exhibit D. We are recommending the change from your initial packet was $810,000, and our funding only allows a maximum of $600. Butler was very cooperative and was able to shift that down to $600. Mr. Bradsky's here, and he can fill in any, he's got a few things maybe to say, or is he just available for questions? But the Personnel and Finance Committee motion was very favorable for this. We favorably recommend entering into this contract with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert. Any questions? Very good. Then I request approval from the full board.
So moved.
Mr. Bradsky, you did a great job this morning. We're all excited about it. Great opportunity for us.
Motion by Mr. Khan, second by Barb, that we approve, can't pronounce your last name. Redmond. That we approve the Marquette Greenway Project Management and Project Development draft contract. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
And the next Personnel and Finance Committee meeting will be May 18th at 8 a.m.
Thank you. Thank you. Technical Planning Committee, Kevin Resky.
The Technical Planning Committee met on Tuesday, April 11th. Today, there's only one item for TPC business. It's a presentation of Northwest Indiana 2050 plus draft Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The comment period is now underway for this plan. NERC staff involved in the preparation of the draft document will now each present on the topics covered.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're here to talk about NWI 2050 Plus. As our executive director said, it is federally mandated, yet, of course, regionally involved. This is required by federal law. We're required to update this plan, our long-range plan every 4 years, and so NWI 2050 Plus is set to be our latest 4-year iteration of that requirement. It is also required to have at least a 20-year horizon. It is pretty much just an update of NWI 2050. That is the plan that you see on that board, or at least a portion of that plan is what you see on the wall over there with your matrix there that you've been looking at for the last almost 4 years now. So hopefully you're familiar with it. And this body did adopt that plan back in 2019. And NWI 2050 Plus is set to continue the 4 main focus areas found in NWI 2050, which are connected, renewed, united, and vibrant. NWI 2050 Plus is also set to provide practical and measurable solutions to our region. However, there are some differences between NWI 2050 Plus and the NWI 2050, and those have to do with the new emphasis areas from the IIJA, which is the federal infrastructure law that passed late in 2021. And those themes that are kind of heightened in NWI 2050 Plus are resiliency, housing, carbon reduction, and freight. So these are areas of additional emphasis that you'll find in our draft NWI 2050 Plus plan, which is out for public comment, which has been out since April 4th. So just a very brief timeline of how we got here. Back in May of 2019, this body adopted NWI 2050. From about May of 2019 to November 2021, we were really in the mode of implementing NWI 2050. But at some point around November of 2021, we realized we have to start preparing for the next plan, since that comes along every 4 years. So in February of 2022, we put up an RFP for consultant help in certain elements having to do with active transportation, land use, transit, and freight. And then in March of 2022, we hired on those consultants to help our team. And then in June of 2022, we did a pop-up event at the Maryville Juneteenth event. That was a great event. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that opportunity. We also did a series of public open houses across our 3 counties in June of 2022. And then a lot of you probably saw us out at the county fairs in July and August of last year. We went to the LaPorte County Fair in July, and later in July, the Porter County Fair, and then in August, the Lake County Fair. And then pretty much from August to around March, we were just really busy getting that draft NWI 2050 Plus out for public comment, which happened on April 4th. And as I mentioned, the comment period extends until May 5th. And then we are expecting to adopt NWI 2050 Plus in July of this year, after we resolve our air quality conformity determination, which is a federal requirement. So what components does NWI 2050 Plus have? Well, it has an introduction, and then 6 other chapters. And these are in alphabetical order, not to suggest that any one is more important than the other, and this will be the order that we present on this morning. So active transportation, climate and the environment, freight, land use and housing, roadways, and transit. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Stephen Hughes, to present on the active transportation element.
So, one thing that Scott didn't mention is we did have a good public participation element in this. Here's some photos from, I think these were from the fairs, right?
Yeah.
So, and while my position is the public transit and engagement planner, since Mitch is at a conference today, I'm going to be covering the active transportation component, and I figured I'd throw on my little buttons for active transportation in case you were confused that Mitch isn't the one talking about this. What we've talked about a lot in the past here for active transportation has been trail focused. Those of you who've been on the commission for a while will remember that. On this map, we've got in green the trails and the existing and the proposed trails, but then in red you're seeing, those are roads. Those are streets and roads that add stronger connection between communities, so that once someone gets maybe off the trail and wants to head into town, there's a good way for them to do that. There's a number of roads that have been identified. Obviously, this is just a very brief overview. But for different types of facilities that are varying levels of good for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Without belaboring the point here, this is 4 of, I think, about 12 that are identified in the plan. The dark blue and the orange are the colors that represent that the public input determined those are good for all or most users. So you can see there are different opportunities from bike lanes to on-street and off-street facilities. And that's, every community is different. There are recommendations depending on kind of what type of travel you see in your community. And this is a portion of the topology for what the different roads are, basically ranging from your trails all the way up to your major arterials. Those are going to be large commercial roads. Most of you are familiar with those classifications. Talks about what you'd expect out of those roads, what you'd expect in terms of who's using those roads, and some general suggestions about, well, maybe these are appropriate if, or maybe these are not appropriate if not for. So there's a whole lot more information in the plan. Obviously, this is 3 slides out of something like 90 pages on that. So I think that is all that I can really speak to on this. And Kathy will talk to you about climate and environment.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The environment section of the regional plan are not new. Most of it you've seen before. So today I'm just going to talk about some excerpts from the climate plan that pertain mostly to transportation and some new work we've done on environment going towards resiliency. Climate Action Northwest Indiana is kind of the brand we're putting over the regional greenhouse gas inventories, regional climate action framework, and then a regional resiliency plan. We did the inventory in 2020, and many of you participated in that. We're working on the action framework right now, and then this coming year we'll be working on the resiliency planning aspects. In case it hasn't been, if you haven't seen some of these predictions, it's expected that we'll have between 25 and 50 more days of extreme heat events by 2050, and 2 to 7 more extreme precipitation events. So who does that impact? The high heat events are a health risk for children and the elderly, people who work outside. OSHA even has an app, so you can tell if it's too hot for your workers to be out there. And that's an example of what year, but when the culverts, a lot of infrastructure gets damaged when we have the severe rain events. So working with ICLEI and Indiana University, we came up with science-based targets of a greenhouse gas reduction of 63.4% from our 2017 baseline by 2030, and then net zero is our target for 2050. And then there's a bunch of numbers that I'm not going to talk about right now. You have to read this. These are the same numbers, but kind of in pictures, in case that's easier. The chart on the left is showing all of the emissions for Northwest Indiana. The chart on the right is removing industrial energy and industrial direct emissions from the chart, because we can't really do a lot about that. But I thought it's important to put it in context so that, and then the red line represents the 2030 emission target, and then at the top, and the bottom one is the 2050 target. The 2030 target, we are there, except for industrial process, and we can't do anything with that. 2050 is going to be a harder effort, but just to say that it seemed like really doom and gloom when we first said 63.4%, but it's actually pretty achievable. And here we're forecasting emissions based on population growth, economic growth, and other assumptions that are already in the regional plan. So mostly we're going to focus on transportation in this planning document. This is just showing that in our in the transportation and mobile source category, which includes planes, trains, and automobiles, gas vehicles, which are basically mostly passenger cars, are like 60%, and then diesel on-road vehicles are another 30%, almost all of it, And the other two ones are rail and non-road mobile, which is like construction equipment, agricultural equipment, like things that are moving around but not moving people or things. So that's what most of this will focus on. And really the only way to reduce emissions from those categories are reduce the miles traveled, which we've been talking about here for years with the non-motorized and complete streets and denser development so people can walk and bike to places. That's how you reduce the miles or add new trains. Or you can reduce the amount of carbon per mile, which one of the requirements in the IIJA is to talk, really focus on planning for electric vehicle transition. This is just showing where the yellow dots are the current electric vehicle charging stations. The black ones are those that will be added with the INDOT's NEVI plan and also NIPSCO's VW project. You can see we have some gaps kind of in the urban, I don't know my point because I got quick focus, in the urban core, and we have gaps in the rural areas that aren't really being addressed currently. And then last is a kind of trying to bring our previous conservation planning together with the concept of resilience. Some of you who've been around a while may remember in 2040, we had the whole map colored green, and then the Greenways and Blueways 2020, we narrowed it down some. These conservation focus areas represent about 7 years of work with conservation partners, the DNR, and other agencies on a handful of places that are really, they're important. They're the pearls on the string of the river. And so they increase our resilience, they provide a place for the trees, which our forests and trees suck up 100,000 tons of carbon a year. And they make us more resilient. So we're recommending that those areas be carefully looked at and buffered going forward. And now you will see Scott again. Scott, you will see a few times.
Thank you, Kathy. Excellent overview of climate and the environment. Now we'll talk about freight and the freight chapter in NWI 250+. So we were very fortunate to have great consultants working with CPCS out of Washington, D.C., and they did just a phenomenal job of collecting a bunch of data and helping us with the freight element in the plan, as well as the steering committee, which some of you participated in or were involved in some of those interviews. So thank you very much for that. So as far as freight is concerned, we looked at kind of safety. So we looked at, this map shows where the truck-related crashes are, which you might be surprised to learn is actually less than 10% of all of the road-based crashes in our region, but still, there's a lot of dots on this map, unfortunately. And we also looked at where some of the rail crashes were at rail crossings. We all know that we have a ton of at-grade rail crossings in this region, and that's going to be an issue that we'll continue to face over the years, and hopefully they'll gain more importance. But other than the next element that we looked at in the freight chapter was looking at mobility issues. As you can see, the Mormon Expressway, I-8094, is highlighted as a bottleneck. It is definitely a bottleneck, as we all know. And so we identified where the truck bottlenecks were. We also identified where the low bridge clearances are, under 16 feet on the interstate system in our region. And as you can see from this map, there are a lot of those bridges as well that can perhaps pose as barriers. And so this is a very helpful exercise to look at the mobility issues related to freight. We also looked at the infrastructure condition related to freight. So this highlights kind of the areas of poor pavement segments in our region, as well as bridges that are in poor condition. So putting all this together, our consultants helped us come up with this gap areas, potential projects that could address safety, mobility, and pavement issues as well in our region. So we looked at where these highlighted projects are. Now, we did discover that most of these potential projects are on INDOT facilities, as you might imagine. Those are the most important facilities related to freight. However, we also looked at some of the kind of the highest impact, high-level planning cost estimates for potential projects that could address freight issues. So one potential project we looked at addressing is this Norfolk Southern Bridge over US 30 in the town of Cherville. This is an under 16-foot bridge, so that is below, and it's on the national highway system, meaning that there are trucks that use this facility, and there are also no shoulders for non-auto users to get through. So this is definitely a high priority project to look at in the future. And then also looking at the idea of open road tolling on the Indiana Toll Road, removing all of the toll booths and replacing them with either open road tolling, gantries, or toll by plate facilities. We estimated that a very high level planning cost estimate for that bridge project cost about $25 million, and removing the toll booths and replacing it with open road tolling to be around 1.55 million per total. So these are pretty substantial projects, but we hope to gain momentum and traction about these in the future. With that, I'll turn it over to Eman to talk about land use and
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, this part is the land use and housing, and in this one specifically, we adding housing for the first time because we are required now to add housing with the doing analysis of the land use and transportation. It's a high resolution map, that's why it takes time. So in this part, the scope was to look at the existing land use patterns and trends within the three-county area. Also, we have population trends and the projection. We looked also at all the communities' effort in the last 10 years and their planning efforts and comprehensive plans. We identified some issues or uncertainties. We looked at what kind of development vision that we're looking for and the land use principles that we would like to apply here based on the vision that we have of the four connected, renewed, and united and vibrant. So by the end, we came up with the future population, the number of the population, which is almost, we're going to reach by the year 2050 almost 900,000 people within the area, and the overall development that helped us achieve the vision. The map on the right here showing the existing land use. Of course, the yellow color is a residential area, which is the most dominated land use, represent almost 80% of the land use within the three-county area. That most of the development happened in the western Lake County and central Lake County and Coulter County, and the area between Michigan City and City of Buffalo. That was most of the development, which is some of them within the communities, but also we have a significant development happening outside of the municipalities. The two maps here showing the housing units change and the population change. The darker the color is a significant change. So we can see that for the population here, it's in San John, Crown Point, Winfield, around Valparaiso.
Cedar Lake.
Cedar Lake, yeah, which is a darker color here. So same trends. Some of them is like moved to existing housing, and some was built, which is all the dark colors again. We did like a significant housing analysis, which we have really, like a lot of analysis. I can't go through all of that, but just to make it, to summarize that, we did the analysis based on the household income, starting from less than 25,000 per year up to over 150,000 or 500,000. So when we looked at the affordability between what's available from rental and home ownership, we found, and you can look at the, I don't know if this is, okay, you can give it. So if you have a blank area, white like that, it means that we're lacking housing for these household income category. So for the area, I'm going to give you an example. For people of 25,000, we're still missing over 12,000 units to meet this level of income. Even for the income over 150,000, we're still also missing some significant. And what's happening is the people that are making 25,000, they could go because they don't have enough supply, so they move to the higher category, which is not affordable for them. So we did the analysis, and also we have an index by the end of the chapter showing for all the significant number within the municipality. So every community can look at the housing availability and what's needed within their communities. So that was the housing analysis, and we came up with some recommendations for that. This map here, which is the last map, And that's like what we came up with as a recommendation. So we have the map on the left here showing the 15 minutes walk, and that's around all the centers and close to schools and significant commercial area and surface area. So the 15-minute walk, it shows like people can walk within 15 minutes and reach all the amenities, and they can bike for 5 minutes. So within these circle. So what we're gonna use that is in the future funding, we're gonna have it as a criteria. So if you wanna build a sidewalk or bike lanes, it will be best to be within the 15 minutes walk. We also have, we identified all the transit-oriented development along the South Shore and the West Lake Corridor. And also we have 5 bus stations as we identified in our transit-oriented development report. We have like some significant corridors, from commercial corridors to traditional corridors, and we have a specific recommendation what type of redevelopment or improvements needed along these corridors. As well, also we have the one on the right here showing the type of development. We decided to have the best scenario. I think did I pass that? We have like 4 scenarios talking about what's the best development. So we have a significant single-family homes between 1 to 2 units per acre, and if we continue with the same trends, we gonna by the year 2050 we're gonna consume 40 square miles. So we have a different scenarios, but our preferred scenario is the one has like a less single-family homes of 1 to 2 units per acre. We encouraging more like 3 to 5 units per acre. We have examples here of the village, which is a great example of single-family homes but small lots. And that's what we need more of this type of development. And if we continue with that, reducing the 1 to 2 units per acre, increase the small housing and the double housing and some of multi units, that we will use 16 square mile by the year 2050, and we can using this scenario save like a lot of open space and have a higher density. So that's like a brief. It's a big report, has a lot of analysis, so you can take a look at that.
And I would just like to say that it was reported in the media that Winfield, St. John, and Cedar Lake are 3 of the fastest growing communities in the entire state of Indiana.
Yes, you're right. Thank you.
This will be the third and last time you'll see me up here. This will be the shortest. Talk about roads. We all know that they're very important to our region. I'm just going to show a couple of maps here. So the first one is about functional classification. This is a very important concept in our region. This is a typology of roadways that is officially administered at NERC as well as through INDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. This determines eligibility for future federal funding projects. So it's very important that your community's roads are accurately reflected on the system, and we will continue working with you on making sure that they are. So the other map I wanted to show is about where the crashes are. So earlier I talked about the truck-related crashes, but these are actually all the crashes. And this is a heat map of 5 years of data from